Hello. It is very certain now that these neocons are the biggest danger that our planet faces. Never mind COVID, never mind climate change. The neocons end up killing more people than all of those put together. You only have to look at the wars that have happened over the last 20, 25 years and to see how bad this is. Now, we turn round and we say, don't we, that only three people benefit from the war. That's politicians, bankers, and arms dealers. So let's have a little look at these politicians that we call neocons, the Lindsey Grahams, and now the Nikki Haleys, and people like this, the Clintons, the Obama administration. Let's have a look at some of the think tanks with the Kagan family. So let's start with the Kagan family. You have Robert, Frederick, and you have Kimberly Kagan, and you have Victoria Nuland, who is the Secretary of State for America. Now, uh, we would say Kimberly Kagan is one of the more vocal, along with Robert Kagan and Frederick Kagan. Victoria Nuland is the inside arm of making these wars happen. Now, along with the National Endowment for Democracy, who are meant to give money to people to, shall we say, express their freedom, which normally results in riots and the overthrow of any government that isn't friendly towards America. It is absolutely necessary that they control everything that is going on. Now, we look at Kimberly Kagan, who funded or started, sorry, the Institute for the Study of War. And please ask yourself, go and do a little research on where that funding comes from. Of course, through various sources, it is funded by the military industrial complex, who have to sell arms to stay in business. And a lot of people are making a lot of money. So Kimberly Kagan started the Institute for the Study of War, which, as far as I can see, ever since this conflict started, the Russia Ukraine one I'm talking about, of course, we'll move on to Israel and Palestine, the Russian war with the Ukrainians. Now, they overthrew the democratically elected government in 2014 by means of the National Endowment for Democracy, giving a bunch of money to whichever opposition they can find. And then what happens after that are riots and deaths and various other things that come along. Igor Lopatanov did a wonderful thing called the Maidan Massacre, where he pointed out where the shots came from to start killing those people. He also pointed out where they collected the weapons from, no less than the American embassy. Snipers don't go onto video and wave at people or show themselves packing away and put it on social media. That's all a complete load of nonsense. A sniper, the very first thing he wants to do after he's finished is get away with it. Now, if you go and watch Igor Lopatanov's wonderful film called The Maidan Massacre, search for it, watch it. If you've not, then that will give you a real insight how this overthrow was started. They must have deaths for it to be live national news and world news. So that's what they organised and engineered. When you turn around and you go, oh, I don't believe my country could do that, just think about the 500,000 children that died in Iraq for weapons that weren't even there. Okay, 500,000 children that the Americans then turned around and said was justifiable. When is the death of any child justifiable? It is an absolute travesty. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's have a look at Robert Kagan, shall we? Who was very vocal in trying to get the whole Russiagate thing with Trump. Very much trying to get the Republicans to come out and support impeachment. It turned out that after the investigation, that with MI6 super storyteller Jack Honoré, Christopher Steele, it turned out to be nothing but a total hoax. But Hillary Clinton and the rest and everybody else pinned their hopes on this story. And it turned out to be completely fabricated and completely false, with no basis in fact whatsoever. So let's get on to Victoria Nuland, who turns up in various countries, and she'll do whatever she can to warn and also to threaten the people who are actually in charge of that country at the time what America want them to do. Now, this is bullying on a worldwide scale. This is definitely something that should be stopped straight away. American foreign policy has always been a disaster. It started in Korea, carried on through Vietnam, carried on through Afghanistan and Iraq. Okay, and anybody who goes and sees southern Iraq now and sees all those children with those blastoma cancers from depleted uranium shells that were fired from Warthog A-10s in southern Iraq. People think they hear the word depleted and it's perfectly safe. If you think it's perfectly safe, please go and live in the areas where they were prevalent and share in the blastoma cancers that infect the majority of children in that area. The other thing that we need to say on this is depleted uranium shells and cluster munitions given to one of the most corrupt regimes you could ever find in Ukraine. So what did we get? Well, we got them firing on civilians. Do you genuinely think that these ethnic cleansing lunatics, and that's what the Ukrainian regime now is, care about their own people? They're throwing their own people into the front line with 2 weeks of training, shooting them or arresting them if they fail to fight, beating them up and throwing them into vans. There are tons and tons of videos that you can see of all these things occurring. You can see Ukrainians surrendering. In fact, the Russians putting a radio frequency on walls so the Ukrainians can phone them up and surrender. So much do they not want to be there. This is not their war. This is the ethnic cleansers' wars, backed by us in the West, by NATO and by the USA, and backed by the mainstream media, which is absolutely shocking. Being absolutely no doubt what's coming down the pipeline here. We've tried, haven't we, to open a second front, Kosovo, Serbia. We've tried to do it in Poland by blaming the fact that a Ukrainian defense missile landed in Poland. We've tried with the Armenia-Azerbaijan situation, and now we have the Palestine-Israel conflict. Now, the UN have quite clearly said that there is war crimes committed on both sides, and that the people responsible should answer for them. And I wholeheartedly support that, as long as it's even, and we have the same amount of people who have committed these atrocities, every single one of them, they should be locked up. But they're not doing the same with Ukraine, are they? And there are many thousands of instances that show that they are shelling civilians with cluster munitions. Why are we giving, when we know we killed so many children in Iraq and we caused so many cancers in southern Iraq, why are we giving depleted uranium shells to a bunch of ethnic cleansing lunatics? It's quite simple. It's Russophobia. Now we have this situation, do we not, in Israel and Palestine? And once again, I don't have a dog in either fight, neither do I in the Ukraine-Russia war. It's about telling the facts. Well, straight away, the BBC, Nikki Haley, and various other neocon warhawks were out saying Iran were behind it. Well, we found out, and there is a picture on my Twitter, that the Ukrainian arms have actually turned up there. Okay, so the Ukrainian, there is actually a picture and a video of Hamas leaders thanking Ukraine for the weapons. So what are we doing? We're blaming Iran with no actual facts and sending ships into the Med to support Israel. Why? We have no actual facts that Iran have supplied these weapons. When you do, that's a different matter. But we do have facts that Ukraine have supplied weapons, because they are one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and it didn't take them long to siphon off half those arms and sell them, and people have made a pretty penny out of that. So very simply, what's happened now is we're going to sail to Ukraine, aren't we? and bombard them because they've sold weapons to Hamas. We've got the proof. Oh no, no, we're going to sail to Iran where we've got no proof and start a conflict there. And by dragging Iran into the conflict, they also drag Russia. That's the whole purpose of this. And it is a terrible, terrible thing that we're doing in the West. We need to start voting out these leaders. You can't change the system, but you can use the system to your advantage by voting out anybody who wants to start a war with anyone. The other thing that is really, really prevalent here, and we should never forget, is that the bankers, politicians, and arms dealers, so the arms dealers make tons of money, the bankers make their pretty little penny, and the politicians, they make their money because they get, when they leave and they join think tanks or they become the CEOs or chairmen of various companies, they're well looked after. And so are their funds. And if you think for 1 second that the politicians that aren't advocating war are not getting money from the military industrial complex to do so in one form or another, you're simply delusional. There is nobody coming over the hill to save us. We have to save ourselves. The only way we can do that is through the ballot box. And I know what you're going to say. They'll just cheat. And that's highly possible. But the thing you have to push for is one ID, one vote. That's why they don't want it, so they can cheat. You must have free and fair elections, and I don't think we have one of those in 2020. How can the so-called most civilized country in the world be allowing ballot boxes to be taken in at 2 o'clock in the morning when the whole place is shut down and to be tipped out onto a table to be counted? There has to be, does there not, like the British system, where everybody stays until every vote is counted, and if votes are, shall we say, late or not coming in, or mail-in ballots, they should be discounted. You should turn up, one vote, and that's it. And you should have the ID to be able to do that. And I don't think that's unfair, do you? But it's unfair to some, because they obviously can't manipulate the figures. The problem is, in America, you have a choice. You have Donald Trump, or you can have one of the neocon warhawks like Nikki Haley, whose barbaric and stupid messaging the other day is absolutely consistent with the sort of message these lunatics who want to drag us into wars always put out. But you've got Donald Trump, if you want him. In Britain, we don't have it. In France, we maybe have it with Marine Le Pen, but we had that, didn't we, with Meloni in Italy, who was considered to be far right. And there's another misnomer. It is not far right whatsoever. The biggest lunatics have always been the far left, the socialists. Hitler's party was a socialist party, and socialism, fascism, communism is just the international arm of that. So we have Mao Zedong, Stalin, Hitler, three of the biggest killers in the past couple of centuries, and they were all far left in their views, and everybody associates the Nazi party with being right wing. That is just a tag that the far left put on to try and deflect from what they do. You would have to look, wouldn't you, if we take my country, Britain, and we turn around and go, okay, we'll start from moment one. Britain, anybody who disagrees with anything that the people in power say are tagged as far right. The far left are the people that are stopping your freedom of speech, that are putting these dreadful trans ideologies into schools and causing ethnic divides and also the black and white race wars. These people just foment anger and fear and aggression wherever they go, and they're easy to spot. The people who are considered far right are actually the liberal people who want to live and let live and want a few safeguards in place just in case these people go too far, which they already have on all levels. It is a system of fear that we are ruled by. We're ruled by climate change, we're ruled by COVID, we're ruled by wars, and we're ruled by divides where people put you into a box before they can attack you. And it's a clever tactic that the far left do, or these socialist or communist ideals, where they lock up journalists like Julian Assange, squash your free speech. I may not agree with you at all, and I might think you're an idiot. You might think I'm an idiot. But I would defend to my dying breath your right to say so and my right to have an opinion back. It is without doubt incumbent upon us to reverse what is happening in the world. The only people that can save us is us, the normal, ordinary people out there. And if we carry on the way we're going, then you're just going to lose more and more of your freedoms. You're going to lose more and more of your lives. You're going to lose more and more of your money, and you're going to lose more and more of your sanity. And in the end, people are just going to start disappearing out of European countries simply because they don't want to live there anymore. When you turn around and look at your country and say, I'd rather go and live somewhere else, there's something wrong with it.